Good morning. Thank you for coming today. First, I want to start off by saying that while I'm in a mayoral campaign, this is not a campaign-oriented event. It is a personal event to try to help this group, and I would encourage other candidates to see the need to help right now. We need to save our curling clubs right now before we lose them during this pandemic, and it's starting to get serious. And I only just recently found out about this myself. So I'm going to read a couple of things that are affecting them in my view. My wife did some research on taxes, and I have an office just down the street, and I was stunned to find out how much property tax this place pays, which started conversations which found out to what we're finding out here today. Number one, improper zoning. This building and the Sutherland Curling Club are zoned IL2, which is the same as the zoning in the chemical buffer if you're not familiar. It does not allow for public assembly or commercial recreation areas. So it's completely the wrong zoning for this building, and that hurts them. Through the off-season, they can't have some events here to try to make money because the city deems it an industrial hazard place. It has to be changed. They need to be able to operate properly throughout the season. Number two, unequal taxes. Airplane hangars in our city get a special 20% tax abatement since 2004 under Mayor Don, with Charlie as a councillor, and yet they do nothing for curling rinks, which are socially viable and important to our community. Number three, special breaks for Prairieland Park and the World Trade Center, but nothing for socially significant clubs like curling. So Prairieland Park sits on ag land, the entire site. They pay $100 tax a year, or rent. The city, as far as I know, pays all the taxes because I can't find that Prairieland has paid anything. They have a bar on that site, which is totally against the zoning, and that bar competes with the bars like Stan's Place and the Chop House down the street, which pay commercial tax. So curling rinks should be in there somewhere, at least being something that helps the community. Number four, city recreation and parks ranked curling rinks at the bottom of its master plan priority list, and this is showing. So if you go to their master plan, curling rinks are right at the bottom with the last three items are tied for last place. And that's significantly a problem. When the city doesn't think the curling rinks are significant or meaningful to our community, that shows, and that's how they've been treated. Corman Park offers significant municipal tax breaks to socially important endeavors like this. They get a 50% at times municipal tax break. Like SIR, they get a big tax break. The BRT funding allows for infrastructure and recreational expenditures, not just for transit. So the city could pay and buy all four clubs, pay them what the value of the properties are, and then own them and maintain them and just lease them back the same way Prairieland Park pays their $100 rent. They could make a very small rent to these groups, and these groups could offer really good service to the community. The last thing, number seven, the Winter YXC Fund has $240,000 in it right now, and they have nothing allotted for this winter at all because of COVID, because of the pandemic. And they're looking for things. Charlie has mentioned that he wants to find things to bring people out in the wintertime and to keep them engaged. While the curling clubs have made great effort to create systems in place here so that people can be isolated and still enjoy winter activities. And from youth to old age, people enjoy curling. So we have to try to do that. So I think that YXC fund could be used to pay the taxes for these clubs. And I think that that's the minimum that should happen in this right now. So I'm going to pass the podium off to the manager of this club, the Granite Club, and the manager of the Unequal Club. And please direct your concerns and questions to them after their statements. Thank you.
We'd like to thank everyone for joining us today. My name is Steve Turner, and I'm the manager of the Granite Curling Club. This is Corey Koach. He's the manager of the Unequal Curling Club. Although our attendance is not meant as an endorsement of Mr. Tarasoff or his campaign, we do appreciate that he has brought this forward, this situation that Saskatoon curling clubs are facing. All four of Saskatoon curling clubs are individually run and managed, not-for-profits. We all provide recreational services for people of all ages. Last season, the four curling clubs had almost 3,000 elementary students try curling, many of those from the inner cities of Saskatoon, through our Ride to Curl program. We welcomed high schools, phys ed classes, as well as school teams for practices, league play, city championships, and regional playdowns. We host leagues for seniors, juniors, and everyone in between. Casual, recreational, competitive. We have leagues that are LGBTQ safe and welcoming, and we host Aboriginal championships every year. We also host many regional, provincial, and national events, and together with our local governing body, Saskatoon, we spearhead the hosting of other larger events, such as the World Curling Tour, the Brier, and next year's Olympic trials. Curling has a strong economic impact on the city of Saskatoon and creates many seasonal and year-round jobs. For example, did you know that the kitchen here in the Granite has been run by the same family for the last 25 years? And I don't think there's a lot of restaurants in the city that could make that same claim. So however, when we began the process of re-examining our reopening plan and what the financial impact would be if we couldn't reopen, we knew we had no choice. We had to reopen. Curling clubs in Saskatoon are faced with the additional challenge of essentially no support from the municipal government. Most curling clubs throughout Canada have some form of support. That may be a city-owned facility, grants, or assistance with expenses such as property tax. For the 2 curling clubs here this morning, collectively our property tax bill is just under $100,000 a year. We have worked hard to change our business model to create additional revenue streams, especially during the off-season. However, due to our current property zoning, we are extremely limited with what we can do. To make matters even more complicated, as Mr. Tarasoff mentioned, the 4 curling clubs don't even share the same zoning. We welcome the opportunity to bring the issue to light and even more importantly, find a working solution that can allow us to still provide curling to Saskatoon. Mr. Clark, Mr. Norris, Mr. Atchison, we welcome the chance to meet with you about this. As the saying goes, you can ignore us, but we won't go away. Unfortunately, if we are continued to be ignored, we might not have a choice. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us and allowing us to bring light to the situation that we're faced with right now. 3 years ago, on behalf of Curl Saskatoon, I was one of the people that spearheaded a project with to just kind of look into where we're at with our city taxes and our curling club situations, and based with, looking at comparing with other curling clubs across the nation. And it was quite interesting that we found out that the majority of the curling clubs, as Steve mentioned, do have some support from the municipality going forward, and it's important to us too, when we have to shell out collectively $100,000 just to exist every year. Our buildings are aging, and in a market where the demand for your recreation dollars is getting more and more and more, we can't keep pricing ourselves out of these things and trying to exist at the same time. And we're not for profit organizations, and we scrap and do everything we can to try to keep our fees reasonable every single year, and we're breaking even or operating at small losses or whatever. So how are we able to fix our buildings when they need to? And these buildings nowadays aren't cheap to run. You're putting in $50,000 to $100,000 a year into the buildings, and where is it coming from? So, and one of the things that I really found interesting too is that Mr. Tarasoff mentioned that we're right at the bottom of the totem pole when it comes to importance, and you look at all the sports and what they offer to people of age groups, the genders, whether you're blind people can curl, wheelchair curling. We've got the only sport that exists that I found that can tailor to the same demographics that curling does is swimming. And other than that, like, everybody can curl from 3 years old to 100 years old. It doesn't matter who you are, what your limitations are. We can get you out there and we can curl. So these are the things we bring a lot of economic value to the community. Our 4 clubs probably $3 to $4 million a year in economic impact to the city, and we just feel that it's important that we have the opportunity to exist. And like Steve said, we challenge the other candidates to talk to us and learn about what we're going through and stuff like that. And hopefully, you know, we're going to have curling in the great province of Saskatchewan in our city for many years to come. Thank you.
You guys have questions?
No, are you taking questions about the campaign as well, or?
I will, but not in here with them, if you don't mind. If you want to ask me a question, how will we do that outside? It's because I don't want to taint. I want them to have the ability to talk to all the candidates. I don't want to use this to be political. I appreciate it. It's just that, you know, it'll taint the whole process here for them, and they won't get the help from the other candidates if it's seen as being a political event. So if you want to ask me outside, more than willing to tell you whatever. My office is at the end of the block here. Nexus building is my office. So.
Okay. Well, I didn't have any questions. I think that was pretty self-explanatory for you guys. Unless there's anything else that you wanted to add that you don't think you got in there.
No, sorry. The only thing I think you really need to pay attention to is this master plan.
I've got a copy of that.
Yeah, so it's
That's
recreation and master plan. It's worth people looking this plan up that curl. There's over 5,000 people that curl in the city that take part annually. So if they read that plan and realize that the city ranks their sport as being the very last of significance to the city council and to the city administration, that's hurtful. That needs to change, and that should never have been that way. So too many people that are making poor decisions are calling for things. So thank you.
To touch on that plan just a little bit more, I was actually asked by Curl Saskatoon to sit in on that focus group for indoor arenas and sports, being both a club manager and part of that board. So I sat at the table with hockey, ringette, and speed skating. Now, as we sat around the table and had this conversation, and you know, topics would come up. You know, so what are your wants and your needs? And regardless of the other sports, it was, well, we need a new facility. We need this, or such and such a place needs a better lobby, or better dressing rooms, or we need a better concession, or you know, we kind of like the spot we've got now, but we'd really like something else to add on. And I just finally spoke up and said, we're in two different worlds here, because we are our own entity. So if we decide that our lobby is inadequate, we have to fundraise, you know, budget for, look for sponsorship to try to make changes. Whereas, you know, some of the other sports where they're just simply paying rent in those facilities, they're just dictating, oh, well, we want a bigger lobby, or it's time to fix these dressing rooms. And realize like it's night and day in terms of the treatment of the sports between hockey, ringette, speed skating, and curling. And then when we saw the end results, that we were tied with dance studios and meeting rooms in terms of priority for indoor sports and recreation, it became pretty clear.
Okay. Did you had you talked to any media outlets about this yourself, the curling club guys, or?
No, it's
like you. I mean, like you went to Cary to talk to us, or?
No, I approached them just because I figured out what was going with the taxes, and I couldn't figure out why they were paying so much taxes and how come. My wife did some research on taxation, and I worked just down here, so I was just curious. And when I found out this building was IL2, I was very confused, because that can't exist. This building legally can't be in IL2. And neither can the Southern Curling Rink. You can't have public assembly inside of IL2. You can't have commercial recreation facilities inside of IL2. So I couldn't figure out how they even operate, because all the things that they could do to even make money off season would be shut down in IL2 beyond curling during the winter season. So I started conversations, and then they started telling me the bigger plight here. And they did make a presentation to council, what was it, 2 years ago?
A couple of years ago.
A couple of years ago, they've tried to go to council and nothing's got done. And then, of course, the master plan says, you guys are at the bottom. So it's hard to dig your way out, but they're going to lose the facilities here. And, you know, during the pandemic, this pressure has just got so high now that they have to pay this massive tax bill, but also somehow keep people employed and find ways to keep people safe. So I just wanted to somehow talk about it without being a mayoral campaign thing. And you guys are kind enough to be here, so consider it, because if this building were to close, it'd be too late to then decide, hey, we should maybe do something. It'll be gone.
Yeah, and the other